Good day everyone, we are going to start a new tutorial and we are going to install Windows Server 2019 in VMware. This is a program for simulations of virtual machines in your computer, laptop, desktop, whatever. Can be used on Windows and on Linux. A Mac, you can use VirtualBox for that as well. I will show you that later, but now this. First, we're gonna download the software. Okay, we're gonna open this. Windows Server 2019 download. So we need the ISO file. You can. No, thank you. Can download all these versions as well if you want it in another language. We're gonna use this one, ISO of English. It starts downloading, it takes a while. When it's downloaded, you can put it in any file you want on your machine. I have it located in software. Yeah, all the way down. There we go. Yeah, this one. This will be the name of the ISO file. This is also for Windows 10. Ubuntu, that will be something else later on. When you've downloaded it, we're gonna make a new virtual machine. Click custom workstation. Yep, I will install the operating system later. Windows, Microsoft Windows. Choose this one out of all the options, unless you want do something else. Give it a name. Gonna give it DC for reasons I will explain later. Number of processors, you have to check what kind of hardware you have, how many cores in your processor has, how much RAM you have, how much space you have on your disk. Can I show it to you? I think I can. With the device manager, yeah, it will work as well. Okay, for instance, for instance, this is my GPU on my laptop. The keyboard, the processors. I see you have 4 cores. It's a quad-core CPU with multi-threading. So it's like it splits the core. You can see it like splitting the core into 2 virtual cores for the computer, so you can access more. It's a complicated process, but you can make it work like an octa-core processor. I can explain that later if you want, but for now I'll keep it short. It has 1 terabyte of disk space, not a lot of space left, not as much as it shows here. The computer, okay, the RAM, where's my RAM? Damn, where's my RAM? Anyway, I'll show it another way. Here the performance, I have total 31.9 gigabytes of RAM. Let's see, we have 26 more left in reserve. If it's reaching its maximum, it will use some RAM memory capacity on your hard disk. Use a page file to store any information on it. That is not so ideal for performance, but hey, it works. Okay, I'll give it 8 gigs of RAM because we want to give it some extra speed. Click, 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 NVMe, click. It's for the type of disk we will use. Create a new one, yes. Unless you have already an existing disk, which we don't have at the moment. Store virtual disk as 1 single file, otherwise you will have multiple files and that's not so ideal. Allocate all disks now. You can determine the borders of this virtual disk. So it will make a container on your hard disk. In that disk, in that area, all the storage will be located. But if you could, with allocate, it will be limited by now. And now it's like a small file, but it will increase over time when you're storing more information in that container. Okay, that's a theory. Okay, and Customize, yeah, we're gonna do that in a second. So we're not gonna use a printer. If you want to print out something, well, mostly you use your Windows computer to send a print command to the printer. Uh, Sound card, we don't need that. Um, we, we don't need any sound effects on this virtual machine, not on the server either. Uh, just for virtual cores, as I told you before. You can do, if you have multiple machines, they can use the same processor as well, the same core as well from the processor. But it's like you ask some guy to do 500 tasks in an hour, he will overperform itself. Your computer will generate a lot of electricity, it will consume a lot of electricity, generate a lot of heat, so not so ideal. Um, these are some extra options. We're not going to use them now either. We can use net. And this we have other options as well, but with net we will network address translation. It will the benefit is we can directly contact our router, or in this case my home router, to connect with the internet through that machine. So that's very useful. We can make some LAN segments, we can use some host only. In that case, it will only communicate with those physical machine you have, with your laptop or your desktop. With bridged, it's another type of virtual um, other way of communicating with the internet. It can use the same physical network connection as well as your PC is using to connect with the internet. But in this case, with NAT, it will get its own IP address. IP address, you can compare it with the real world. You have like your own home address where you live in a state, country, and from there you can send a package to somewhere else if you know his address where he lives. Otherwise, it will end somewhere randomly, and that's not what we want. Okay, the CD. Compared with this, in the old world, in the old times, you had like the disk or an USB file or whatever. You insert it into your computer, and from there you could install applications or what else. Browse. Okay. Desktop from MISC, software, and then you click the ISO image you've downloaded. Okay, ready to go. Okay, we're gonna launch, boot up. Okay, so loading the files. Okay, we're gonna start the installation. Okay, something else I want to show you as well is a virtual network editor. Also something very useful and important. Okay, of course we need admin rights to modify this. Okay, in our installation, um, whatever you guys have, you can choose any language you want. I'm going to use Dutch since I live in Belgium. We have AZERTY keyboards. Most of you have probably QWERTY keyboards. Yeah, politics, if that's the reason for. Okay, as you see, we have multiple VMnets. The 8 is for the VMnet NAT we're gonna use. Bridged, it uses, in this case, my wireless remote system. Okay, in installation, choose standard evaluation desktop experience, otherwise you can only use the PowerShell commands, and that's a bit hardcore for a beginner. Next, the data evaluation. The other two options were for data center, which is not what we're gonna do today. Okay, and now it's gonna install. That might take a while. Okay, continue process in virtual network editor. So AUC NAT shows IP address with virtual machines. Connect, of course, very important. You can use DHCP. If you choose that, it will give an IP address to the virtual machine from a pool of addresses, multiple addresses. The subnet you have multiple types. The type A, B, C. The type E is for the 10.000 range. Uh, B is for 172.168. Something something. And in this case, is the C. We're going to use this for our virtual machines. Uh, in the real world, the main service, like the most important service used by internet service providers, etc., to mostly get the 10 range in public IP address world. And the private ones is the IP addresses used in like homes or used like in companies, organizations. We're not going to use that. Otherwise, it's a bit more complicated. This is to keep it simple, since most of you guys will set this up in your home network and not in a fancy company network. Okay, the subnet mask. You see a /24 or 255, 255.0. In this, you have when you take a subnet, you can split it up in a lot of IP addresses. You can make multiple IP address groups, like split it up, and that's ideal if you have multiple networks. Multiple networks have to communicate with each other. You can like make a subnet for like 8 machines only. And for safety reasons, it's important you can only allocate 8 machines, so no spy can enter that network and attach a 9th machine to the network. That's a way to protect your networks from intruders from the outside world. Yeah, we don't link a DSP because we're gonna set up a DSP server in our virtual machine that will do the job for us. Servers get mostly a static IP address, so what's the difference between a dynamic IP address from DSP server and static? Well, static is it stands there forever, in theory. A DSP, it gets an IP address for a while, for hours, minutes, days, and then it's the contract ends and they have to give their IP address up and get a new one if they need a new one to communicate with the network. You'll see that later in our videos. Okay. A password, super secret password. Okay. What? Yeah, that's better. Okay, now click on this button or Ctrl-Alt-Delete. You log into administrator. For safety reasons in a real company network, we also changed the name of this account to something else, because hackers will often try to log in into administrator to hack into a computer. By changing the name in something totally different, they will have more trouble, more difficulty to find out what the name is. And of course, keep your password super secret. But first, we're gonna click on this button and click on Install VMware Tools. You're gonna need that. Then you go to this PC and click on this. We're gonna need this to transfer files from our main computer to this machine, and vice versa. Okay, normally it shouldn't take that long. Damn. Come on. Okay. We can also change the name of our computer name in something else. Click on change. Click on type in DC. You can change this later, but for now, change the name. Install this. Typical. Can also customize it if you want. What was the other name? Okay, you see, we have to restart the PC. We'll do that in a second. Okay, close this and this. That's less You see, we get a full screen as well, which is also very useful. Yeah, we're gonna restart. Okay, do that. Meanwhile, the restarting process, you can also install multiple machines at the same time. Depending on how many resources you have on your computer, it will take more time or not. I give it 8 gigs of RAM, which goes a bit faster than 4 or 2. Especially with 2 gigs of RAM, it will go very slow. Okay, we can change the IP address. Click on this and this. Click on change adapter options. Then click on this. You can disable IPv6 as well if you want, but we are in this case, in this scenario, we are going to work mainly with IPv4 addresses because the IPv6 addresses are very long. But maybe I can show you some examples. Command prompt, ipconfig, very useful command. You see IPv6 address is a very long number, complex numbers. IPv4 IP version 4 address is this number, it's much shorter. So the IPv4 addresses in public world are mostly leased out, more or less. So they are end of the pool has been reached, as they say. So they work now with IPv6 addresses over the entire world. They have much more IPv6 addresses available because it's such a long number. And also, as you see, the letter D, F means in hexadecimal mathematics like 12 or 14, I'm no longer sure. But anyway, the main goal is to have more IPv4-6 addresses available for the world to connect with each other. Anyway, use IP address, we're gonna give it, oops, the lock was off, 100. It's very important to keep these numbers similar with the subnet and with the gateway. We're gonna give it this number. Okay, that comes automatically there. Change this if you have another subnet mask. Okay, 100 and 2. There. As you see in our, nope, wrong version. Virtual network editor. If you open it, we're gonna go back to net. You will see we have a default gateway. Net settings, that's our default gateway. You can change it if you want. You can also allow active FTP. It's very useful for sending files very fast. Enable IPv6, you can do that. DNS settings, you can do a lot of stuff with this. Anyway, let's keep it simple for now. There's a lot of information. The DNS, the gateway can also work as a DNS. The DNS, we will install it on this machine. What does the DNS? It makes records. For instance, you have Google. Google as a server, its own DNS server with a certain IP address, and as lookup google.com. Please work. Okay, that should not happen. Okay, something else. Oh yeah. Of course, this needs to be in order before we can connect with the internet. Okay, as you see, we can now ping with the default gateway. It's like sending an hello message. Hello, I'm here. Okay, we can ping with the with my own network. That's my router's address. If that's not working, I cannot connect with the internet. Yep. Island, you see it's on total different IP address. If you do ns lookup, that's a very often used command. Damn. So what's the point of DNS? It makes a record. For instance, Google, you ping to Google, but it will show you another IP address, the 142 instead of something else. If you go to the 142 2 dots dot 251 dot 36 dot 46. It will also go to Google, as you can see. And you see no longer the numbers, but google.com. So it translates the Google to these numbers and vice versa. For machines, they will just communicate in IP addresses. For us humans, it's much more handy if we communicate in Google Words, etc. Anyway, that's done for the day. We're now gonna install our domain controllers. Click, click, click. Skip this page by default. Role based for now. Select a server from it. We have one server for now. For the domain controller, we need to click on this to install all these options, services. Next, install all this software, all these tools we have to use for our domain controller. What's a domain controller? Domain controller is like the main computer, you could say, in your own company network, for instance, or your organization that will manage accounts used by your employees. It will use group policies to push all kinds of settings, all kinds of programs, all kinds of limitations to computers in your company. For instance, you want a certain background you can push that background to every computer in your network. One obligation, they need to have Windows 10 Pro. It does not work with Home Edition. It can work with Enterprise Edition as well if you have that. Okay, we're gonna promote this to domain controllers. Add a new forest. A forest is like a group of main domain controllers that can be member of it. For now we have one domain control and one forest. You see a domain can be added to an existing forest as well. But for now we're gonna call it, give it a name. Test.com. You can give it whatever name you want. Also important to have the .com or .be or something else. Password. This is the domain control password. Very important. Keep it super secret, please. Next, a net bias name, domain name. We used net bias before, like 25 years ago, to communicate between computers. You can still use it, but the communication goes very slow in that technology, that old technology. Okay, the database, where the follow of the database of the log files is these folders. Very important for troubleshooting. If you encounter problems on a domain control and you want to troubleshoot all the errors, that's the place to be. Okay, prerequisite. Okay, we're gonna install all of this. So it will install all this information, all this software. When it's done, you have to restart the computer or the machine, and then we are ready to go. Okay, you can see there are all kinds of things happening. Let it go. After that, restart. Anyway, can we show something else? Okay, we have Windows Defender Firewall, very important. The domain is already shown for so far. Remote desktop, it's very useful if you want to allow another computer from a distance to work on this machine. You can, for instance, log in this machine from the computer and work on there. For instance, you work from home and you want to change settings very fast on this machine. You have to allow this remote connection. It will also make a rule in the firewall for you. That's also very useful. All servers, for now we have one server, but you can list all the servers in here in your network. And you can also check performance, check the last updates, check if Windows is activated or not. The file and storage service, very important. We have one disk for now, where all the information is stored. Later we're gonna add extra disks with extra capacities to be used. Okay. I will keep it for now, this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Ready to be signed out. Okay, timing is very perfect, I guess. Anyway, you see, we are restarting. Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys learned a lot of it. It's all free software. For VMware Workstation, you have a trial of 30 days. You can also get some licenses for a cheap price on some websites. Or there's some more tricky ways to get a license to make this work. But anyway, I hope as I will make more tutorials in the future, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.